Russia has, as you mentioned, reached out to its the only allies it has really at the moment with all the pressure from the West, and that includes Iran, that includes North Korea and China really. Now, the U.S. warned late last year about the possibility China would provide Russia with aid, but they haven't seen that to date.
Right.
The U.S. has seen, and defense intelligence agencies have confirmed that Russia's using Iranian drones, and Russia's trying to now build them themselves in Russian proper instead of having to import them from Iran. And so Russia, according to the U.S., is really desperate, and that's why they're making a play for a partnership with North Korea, which is considerably a much smaller force in the region.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by defense reporter Mike Brest. Mike, we've seen some unusual characters meeting. We've had a meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and who?
Kim Jong Un, the leader of North Korea. As you mentioned, this was somewhat not necessarily of a surprise because we were informed that this could happen by U.S. officials ahead of time. But it is not only notable, but it is noteworthy that it happened in Russia,
right?
Because it was the first time Kim Jong Un has left North Korea since the COVID pandemic, and it's the first time he's traveled to Russia since 2019. And now all eyes were on this meeting because the U.S. and the Biden administration warned ahead of time that Russia is trying to get military support or military aid for its war in Ukraine from North Korea. Now, the Biden administration told us in December that North Korea had provided artillery to the Wagner Group, the Russian paramilitary organization that was at the time on the front lines of the war. And this is the first time we've heard from the administration about another effort. And so while we don't know exactly the deals of an agreement or if one was made between Putin and Kim, we know that they talked about strengthening the bilateral cooperation between their two countries. We know that Kim Jong Un was seeking assistance for their space program because they've had a number of failures recently. And we know that obviously Russia is looking for military equipment and military support from North Korea.
So, and it also comes at a time where we're seeing sort of Russian alignment with a lot of bad actors on the international stage.
Absolutely. We've heard from the U.S. and we've also seen it in play in the war in Ukraine that Russia has, as you mentioned, reached out to its the only allies it has really at the moment with all the pressure from the West, and that includes Iran, that includes North Korea and China really. Now, the U.S. warned late last year about the possibility China would provide Russia with aid, but they haven't seen that to date.
Right.
The U.S. has seen, and defense intelligence agencies have confirmed that Russia's using Iranian drones, and Russia's trying to now build them themselves in Russian proper instead of having to import them from Iran. And so Russia, according to the U.S., is really desperate, and that's why they're making a play for a partnership with North Korea, which is considerably a much smaller force in the region.
So closer to home, the sort of stalemate between Senator Tommy Tuberville, the Alabama Republican, and the Biden administration, particularly the Biden Pentagon, is really starting to come to a head. Where are sort of the tensions and what's the state of play right now?
So just to back up a little bit, last February, Senator Tuberville launched this hold on military promotions and nominations. He was doing this in protest of a policy that the DoD came out with following the reversal of Roe v. Wade, and this was sort of how they plan to address it moving forward. And so DoD said they can't fund or provide abortions on military sites except for cases of rape, incest, and the life of the mother is in jeopardy. That being said, they will now, and this has been the policy since February, which is Tuberville's objection, pay for a service member or one of their dependents the travel expenses associated with having to travel out of state for the procedure because of local laws that have been passed since Roe v. Wade. And so Tuberville has maintained that this policy is illegal because it was not passed through Congress but done from Secretary Austin. DoD points to a memo from the DOJ that has proven or that they have ruled that this is actually constitutional and is within federal law. And so part of it is we're now at a point where 3 of the 8 Joint Chiefs of Staffs are currently filled by an interim person because of Tuberville's hold on these promotions.
Right.
And so that's the Army, the Navy, and the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
The most important position on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, however, is the chairman. Obviously, that's General Mark Milley right now, but he's actually expected to retire by the end of the month. And we have seen so little action that it's hard to believe that his appointed successor from President Biden, General Charles Q. Brown, would actually be confirmed by the time of General Milley's retirement. So that's not only now the chairman, three of the other 7 joint staffers currently in an acting capacity, but with General Brown moving up, there would also be a vacancy to fill his current role.
Right.
So with with these 2 additional vacancies looming in a matter of weeks, we've seen a significant increase in the attention that it's gotten. We've heard from DoD leaders that they're taking even more interest in this right now that they're back from the August recess. We're hearing that not only Secretary Austin, but his staff are communicating with Senator Tuberville's staff, but we're really not sure what will happen moving forward. However, we have heard from Senator Tuberville this week that he would be open to an individual vote on each of these specific nominees instead of how they usually pass them, which is in batches by unanimous consent, which he has held up for the last 6 months.
Right. So Tuberville's argument here is that there are procedural moves that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer could make to get individuals, such as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, considered and confirmed rather than doing it the standard way which he's been blockading since February.
Exactly. Now, Democrats, and that includes Senator Schumer, are not eager to solve this problem for Senator Tuberville. They believe politically that it is in their best interest to sort of let this play out. Mm-hmm. That being said, we've also heard Democrats point to the fact that why should the top 3 or 4 people up for promotion or confirmation get an individual vote as opposed to the other 300 flag officers who, aren't political appointees, who most people don't know their names, who have to consider moving their families as they change, their locations change. The school year just started, DoD likes to point out, and so oftentimes families like to make these moves in the summer based on the school year. But as a result of these holds, a lot of these families are stuck in a limbo.
Well, and Schumer's also indicated that he would like Senate Republican leadership, particularly Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, people who've indicated that they disagree with this tactic by Tuberville, to stop him themselves.
Absolutely, and that's another thing. We have heard from some particular Republicans that they don't believe this is the right way to protest this policy, but at the same time, we haven't heard Republicans actually endorse the policy itself.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mike. You can read Mike and the rest of our national security team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.